Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal-Brainspace, the industry's leading AI eDiscovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to watch me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in eDiscovery. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to, I've vanished from the picture. Hey, technical. Okay, my audio is back, I hope.
We got you. Yep.
Okay, now let's see if we get my camera back. This is a little different than what's happened before, but these things happen. So,
Oh, I think we lost them. Do I take over now?
the camera comes back. Well, while we try to figure this out, I'll do the audio portion of this at least, as I try to get my camera and all of that to function properly. But welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha, at least the audio portion of George right now, Senior Vice President of Brand Awareness at Reveal. Each Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, I host an episode of eDiscovery Leaders Live where I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. Past episodes are available on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. My guest this week, whom you can see even though you cannot see me yet, is Jeff Hirvela. Jeff is a Senior Account Director with Epiq, having previously worked at Iris Data Services, ALC Legal Solutions, Thomson Reuters. Jeff has a BA in Political Science and History from the University of Arizona. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, George. It's great to be here.
So let's get you talking a bit while I try to get my camera to work, and tell us a bit about your background. What got you to where you are anyway?
Sure. Thanks. And it's an honor to be on the program here. It's good to be have a chance to talk about the story, and kind of my story follows a little bit of the progression of the industry. So as you mentioned, I was with ALC Legal Technologies back in 2002, where I started pushing paper around San Francisco. So I was a customer service rep and just came up through the ranks. So my story is, kind of the very, very basic, just coming up through the ranks of the industry as it changed over time. And in San Francisco, I was there as it transitioned a bit from the paper to eDiscovery. I think the first hard drive I picked up, I didn't know what to do with it. I brought it back to the shop and I dropped it on someone's desk and I said, "What happens next?" And at the time, I think we had Discovery Cracker, and it was all just kind of learning as we went. I swore off lit support and eDiscovery when I moved to New York in 2009 or 2006, and I worked for Thomson Reuters selling Westlaw.
And we see how well that swearing off worked, but go ahead.
It is the siren call pulled me back in. So I kept in touch with contacts there in the industry, and some of my good friends had started Iris, and Iris was really interesting to me. They were developing their own software, and it was a different take on the services versus just offering off the shelf technology. They built their own technology, so I signed up with them, and
to talk about in there, because this ties with other things. Iris really was Iris the first or just one of the first to offer managed services for e-discovery?
Yeah, so we like to say we're the first. I think there was a few others offering similar services. The way it worked for us, the story that I really like is that we had a client that was expanding geographies, and they needed to have they had a heavier caseload coming up, and they basically went to our company and they said, we basically need our own Iris to support us. We don't want you sharing. We don't want to have to compete with other resources. And Iris at the time was expanding globally, and we were setting up data centers using virtual instances and really kind of, on the cusp of that like technology. And so we were very good at standing up, new solutions, and we built one dedicated for this client. And then it was like, oh my gosh, that's a solution that people are looking for. And so all of a sudden we began to craft the business model around that. And I think that's kind of the thing that's been exciting for us. So for some time, we offered our own unique technology. Then we were another provider of services using the likes of Relativity. And it was, give us a chance. We're a good company. But then we had this niche with creating managed services where it was, don't just give us a project. We want your the solution at a global level. And that way we can develop better workflows and partnerships. And for me, I always gravitated towards this industry because you're filling a need, and like you're actually helping out the law firms and corporations that are in a bind to deal with these large challenges of sifting through data and managing that challenge. And so the progression of that from a one-off vendor transactional partnership to more of a partnership where we're working together throughout over a course of years and developing like that trust and that communication, I think was just phenomenal. So, and I transitioned, I wore a lot of different hats, and these days I get to focus solely on the managed services aspect of it. Epiq as a company, which we're now part of, offers a wide range of services. And like, that's the exciting thing for me too, is that e-discovery, has evolved to the point now where we're looking further left and right at the opportunities to help better business decisions for our clients and looking at better data management, but also better business decisions for them as well.
Let's have you give us a history lesson here. And I want to focus in particular on the history of managed services, from what they were like when they were first rolled out to Iris to where they are with what Epiq, for example, offers today. So step us through that history.
Yeah, thank you. So the original managed services were more of an infrastructure as a service, a bit of a software as a service eventually, but it really started out with carving out dedicated server space, dedicated software license, the process and the technologies around that, and the personnel to make everything work. So that's kind of the thing that was our niche, where it's like anyone can set up infrastructure as a service. A lot of our first clients were already with a solution. They already had a provider for something like that. However, they had to do all the IT work. And while e-discovery and the technologies around it are important, they're not as important as keeping the rest of the company up and running. So IT resources and the head constraint there was always a challenge. And so that was really where we stepped in and filled that gap and said, this is what we do. We'll take this off your plates. So early on, it was really focused on the technology and the personnel around it. And it evolved into creative offerings around those technologies. We were the first ones to really develop a multi-tenant solution for Relativity. And
for anybody who doesn't understand, what does that mean, a multi-tenant solution?
Sure. So as opposed to investing in your own license and your own seats, we were able to create permissions and securities around our Relativity license, where you would have the full access as if you had your own license. So multi-tenant meant it wasn't your dedicated license. However, it was treated like a dedicated instance for each of our clients, piggybacking off our license. And so now you start to see the analytics take off. And so a big piece of our partnership is with you guys, with Brainspace and NextLP. It started out with the relativity and with the Equivios, but this is the progression where it became, okay, that's fine. A lot of people offer relativity and a lot of people have great PMs. Why are we going to partner with you? And it really became around the integration of our expertise on top of these technologies and the fact that we're now offering them on a dedicated basis. And so jumping forward a little bit, model libraries, take that for example. That's something that we're big proponents of and want to encourage the use of on an individual basis with each of our partner managed services clients. Yes, we have some generic libraries, but we really want to partner and make sure that this is, the law firm X, the corporation Y's way of doing things. So the progression has gone from not just, infrastructure to more creative solutions. And now we're looking at cloud-based, and now we're looking at things that, I think we have an angry caller already.
Yeah, no, don't worry about that. Don't worry.
And so that progression is now also going into from infrastructure as a service to software as a service to cloud-based. There's a lot more acceptance of cloud, but integrating the different technologies. And I think a big piece of where we're at right now, just to bring it current, is there's so many options out there. And to navigate that and have to pick one lane is not always possible. And you have a lot of different comfort levels with a lot of different technologies as you navigate these different portfolios and matters. And so as a company, a big focus for us right now is to offer that suite of services at a predictable rate versus pick one and we'll build around it. And so you may have a solution that includes multiple platforms and multiple AI technologies. And I think that's really where the market's going. I don't know if one is going to win out over the other versus what's the right tool for the right project. And that's going to be an evolving thing. And that's just kind of the trends we're seeing right now.
This all means, if I understand correctly, that you are not simply saying to people, here is your access to a software platform and a set of tools. No one else has access to it. You do. You're on your own. Good luck. Rather, it's here's the software. Here's your access. It's available to you and no one else unless you let someone else in. Now, here as well are services to help you make effective use of that software. When we get into something like analytics, you don't just say, here's Brainspace, good luck.
Yeah.
You don't say, look at all the wonderful Reveal AI capabilities, sentiment analysis, image labeling, you name it. You don't just say, here they are. But I gather from what you're saying, you sit down with the clients, work out what it is they're trying to accomplish, and then which capabilities are likely to be most effective to help them accomplish that. And then you help with the deployment and use of those capabilities as well. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, I said much better than I could say it myself. But to expand on that a little bit, that's the fun part for us, because it's not a one size fits all. It's not here's your solution and good luck. We'll check back in when the contract's up. It's dynamic, and we take very seriously the implementation process. And we built the business model around this to begin with, and we have a whole business unit. This is all they do. And it really is that involved conversation, like you said. So one, let's figure out day one what technologies you actually need and what's nice to have but not need to have. Let's not commit to too much up front. No one can always grow into technologies as they evolve. And perhaps your practice or perhaps your needs as a corporation change over time too. So on one aspect, the core e-discovery services, that's how we approach it. And then we sit down usually over a 30 to 90-day period and really map out what that looks like. And then set up go forward training protocols, and then kind of those racy type, organizations where it's like, this is where we'll take ownership, and then we're going to transition to CU. And then if it's a overnight support, we'll take over here, or if it's a highly technical issue, we'll have our teams leverage our expertise and our guidance. And we've built fun programs, taking NextLP and Brainspace as an example. There is a little bit not as much, but there's still some of that hesitancy to use. And so we have proficient teams that are helpful in kind of doing that first pass using the technology. It's not like, hey, we promise it's good, we'll show you how to use it and good luck. It's like, we'll do this hand in hand with you, even take on the heavy lift of some of the first trainings of it and the first implementations of it, show you the results, and then help you build from that and help build your case around it. So it really, you're 100% right. It's for us, it's the personnel and the service that surrounds that.
Part of what I'm hearing as well is that, maybe I'll approach this a different way. By now, for people who've been active in e-discovery, there are some fairly standard things that they undertake and that they expect to do or have done from them. Data is collected, it's processed, it's put in a review platform. A review is performed for relevance, and then another review probably for privilege. Data gets packaged up and pushed out to somebody. That's, I'm familiar with the diagram that explains all of that, but that's a very common approach. You all are delivering all of that, but you haven't stopped with that. You're pushing the boundaries or the frontier on that, especially with the use of various AI-driven capabilities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll take it a little bit further too, but just to address that comment, it is within the diagram, within the model, there are just much more efficiencies that the technology affords. And with the right team and with the right people and the right collaboration, you can really maximize, those technologies. And so it really is that kind of not being satisfied with the status quo and always looking to help drive efficiencies for the law firm and the corporation, and showing that, cost savings or that value add. But really just meeting the demands of the exponential explosion of data and the various sources coming from. Now we're sifting through Teams data, now we're sifting through, infinite amounts of social media, and how are you going to really build around that and organize that? And so at a base level, at a core level, it really is, how do we make better use of the challenge of the expanding data and the multiple sources? One thing to kind of like push us a little bit further out too, like further left in the information governance side, like one of the fun things is that we're Microsoft Gold compliance certified. And so we are like a preferred partner of Microsoft when it comes to security and compliance address. And so we've looked at those partnerships with the corporations that have invested in M365, and where they're also investing in the e-discovery solutions through Microsoft, the E3 and the E5. And we're saying, you know what, let's better use that. Let's not just, traditional, methods of export large PSTs and data dumps aren't always the best. And the corporations, if they have the right head, the right abilities, have the better sense of where to find that data using these tools first. And so we advocate that, we help consult around that, we help to the point where we actually will have hands-on. If they don't have the headcount and they have a constraint around personnel doing that kind of work, we can even have our teams go and help run searches and filters through their Microsoft, ultimately reducing the data, the risk, the exposure being sent out to someone like ourselves to provide that solution. And so now you look at like a closed system where it used to be around the relativity and around the reveal and around the Nuix and like the big names, like, and now you look at what can we do before that? Like, how can we build out a closed system before it even gets to those technologies? And then even kind of not necessarily before, but kind of a parallel track with this for us as a company is around legal transformation and just the business of law and the digitization and the efficiencies with, everything from billing systems to matter management systems to the organization of those groups, looking at cost, looking at spend, and then in a really fun way, a really cool new area is around the presentation of that data, the aggregate of the data, doing Power BI type presentations, looking at blockchain, how blockchain is impacting the industry. And I'm excited because I don't have the technical depth to really get into like the detailed conversations around those, but I'm surrounded by people that offer these solutions. And so the way managed services started out, piecing together the technologies, I get to piece together all these experts that I get to work with and say, I may not know how to have this conversation, but I've got people who are really good at this. This is their expertise. This is what they do. And so building a solution that goes beyond the starting point where we were, 10 years ago to now we're looking at this ecosystem of services. And that's kind of the exciting part where it's going for me.
It sounds as if over time, the phrase managed services, the managed part of it, has expanded considerably, and the scope of the services included also has expanded considerably.
Right? Yeah. It's fun because it's never the same solution, and even when we have existing partners that we've been working with for years, the conversation is still evolving. And so there's always a reason to revisit and take a look at how we're doing things and what can be different. And I mean, truly, like the idea of the managed, we want to empower. We want to also encourage that our partners are as autonomous as they would like to be, and hands-on using these tools and guiding themselves through it. And that balance of, not everyone can. And, how do we, what's the appropriate balance there? And so, yeah, it's a very ambiguous term. I think that it's now a bit more commonplace. And the thing that I really am proud of, and the reason that, I've taken, so my current role is more of as I mentioned, a consultant just for managed services. It's what excites me. It's what I know. And it gives me a chance to have these just really fun conversations that ultimately we walk into a meeting thinking we're going to talk about one thing. We walk out with a completely different solution and a new direction. And having a company that backs you up on that, a company that actually will say, you know what? Yeah, we're interested in that. And working with Reveal, working with you guys as well. That's a huge part of the flexibility in this. It keeps it just interesting.
One of the things you mentioned earlier in this discussion was working with folks, presumably at law firms, corporate, and possibly governmental legal departments as well, helping them make more effective use of AI models.
Yeah.
What can you talk about on that front?
Yeah. So I think it kind of circles back to the kind of the reassurance that we're going to get through this and it's going to be okay. It's a little bit of that, the initial, we need to get through how much data and we have how much time. And you take that conversation on the law firm side with the legal team. You can take that on the corporate side, looking at the possible, endless bills are going to come out of this. Even the government side, we do have, relations at all these different levels. And I think humanizing it in a way where it's accessible. And yes, these technologies are amazing, and the algorithms they run, I couldn't tell you how they work, but they are essential for managing what we work with on a day-to-day basis. And the teams that are successful are the ones that are open to that partnership and they're open to the possibility of using it and the trust that, hey, you guys are the experts, and we build that rapport and build that dynamic of what's the goal, what are we trying to accomplish, what are the right tools to use for this, and then the execution of it, and just that kind of dynamic of the back and forth and making sure that we're marching in the same direction. you're seeing extremely intelligent people now on both sides, data scientists popping up everywhere. And that's been a trend for a bit, but I'm constantly amazed by just the raw talent and the amount of data scientist level expertise is being brought to this. And so that's the progression where it went from this like, oh, that's a black box technology, I don't trust it, to no, actually we as a firm or a corporation have this person in-house that does this, talk to them and let's build these workflows out.
I'd like you to dig around in that storage bin or whatever you have, pull out that dusty old crystal ball, shine it up, and take a look into the future for me. Tell me where you think managed services is heading and where it'll be, 1, 5, whatever number of years or time frame you want in the future. So where are we going with managed services?
I think it's just, thanks for that. And this will be fun to look back on one day if I have the courage to look back on this. But yeah, no, I think just kind of that comment about the exciting new areas on the digital front of, the things that we don't traditionally think of within the legal technology space, the Power BI and the blockchain and the automation, the digitization, the looking beyond just the problem of e-discovery and investigations and actually partnering on a more holistic level. One of the ideas that we're kind of advocating right now is much more aligned with the technology and software development, where we do have developers on staff and we do have the ability to create. And there are big projects that we create on an ongoing basis, and those meet the need for most of our challenges. But then there's also unique one-off projects that become highly customizable. And that's where you have kind of that specialized product off of the factory line that becomes this like unique side project. So I think the exciting thing for us is keep delivering what we're good on, keep delivering what we know. That's not going to change because that's still the core need that people approach us with. I need technology. I don't have the people or the time or the budget to do it myself. I need help. And so that's where we help out. But then also asking the questions of, yeah, but what about these processes, in IP matter management? What about these processes in your small matter investigations, internal investigations? Like, how do we look at those as better? How can we better use technology and the process that we build around that to help you on a day-to-day basis? And I think, I don't even know what the next conversation is, but that puts us in a place where now we're forward looking and flexible to grow into it, where we're addressing the core services, but mindful of the development and building new solutions and new opportunities. So not really a direct answer, but that's kind of the rosy-eyed, view of the future I've got and the dynamic is happening.
Once upon a many number of years ago, I used to be a whitewater kayaker, canoeer and kayaker. If you were going to kayak down an especially challenging river, you try to, at key junctures, pull off to the side, hike up to an overlook, get a sense of what the river held for you, plan out a route. Then you'd go back down, get on the water, and as with so many things, you had a plan, but then you really had to execute based on what happened to you right away. Yeah. It sounds as if where you all are going or the future you see is akin to that. You of course want to lay out plans, but you need to have the flexibility. You need to have the array of areas of expertise available. You need to have the tools available so that when you actually get on that water and you come up against that rock you didn't realize was going to be there, or you see that path through the water that you didn't notice, you can follow it or avoid it. You can get where you want to be. Sounds like a greater degree of flexibility added into managed services is part of what you're talking about for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I like that analogy.
Well, thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Jeff Hirvela is a director with Epiq. I'm George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. Thank you all for joining us today. And Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, George. Thanks, everyone.